I'm so excited to have Alana Sharps with us today here on the Authorpreneur Summit. Glad to have you guys join us. Let me tell you a little bit about her first. So Alana Sharps is the founder of SurThrive Tribe, carries a wealth of experience as both a high conflict divorce and child custody consultant, and of course is a best-selling author. Her expertise extends beyond her professional achievements. It's rooted in her personal triumphs. Having navigated through the complexities of a toxic marriage entwined with psychological abuse, Alana emerged as a committed advocate for those who are facing similar trials. Her story is one of transformation from a victim to an empowered survivor, and it fuels her dedication to guiding others through the challenging landscapes of domestic strife. And for anyone who has been there, done that, or is going through it, like, woo, you know what high conflict means, right? So, Alana,
Right.
thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for the work you're doing in the world.
Thank you for having me.
So, let's talk a little bit about your previous bestseller, your upcoming bestseller, and what you got going on. We want to hear it all.
Absolutely. So if we talk about my previous bestseller, Wasn't My Fault, An Abuse Survivor's Guide to Navigating Narcissistic Red Flag.
Beautiful book.
That is about my 16-year marriage to a man who had narcissistic personality disorder and how he psychologically abused myself as well as my children, how I got out of the relationship and then endured post-separation abuse during my child custody battle.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story too. And this is a meaty book. I'm going to tell you what, like, she doesn't hold any punches at all whatsoever. And so, with a book like that, what is it that has you inspired to write a second book, and what is it all about?
So I call the first book phase one. That is me going through the relationship and getting out. The second book is phase two, and the book is called Finding Peace, Becoming the Empowered Survivor.
Mm.
And it is the steps that I took to heal after the relationship. Because once you come out of a toxic relationship with psychological abuse, you're a trauma survivor. You're typically diagnosed with complex post traumatic disorder, you're hypervigilant, you're in high fight or flight, your nervous system won't calm down, so you can't sleep, and then you're embroiled in post separation abuse. So I talk about all of the ways that you can calm your nervous system. I recommend seeing a trauma therapist and the different modalities that you can use in order to heal from your toxic relationship.
I love this, and I'm taking notes. I love part that excites me most is the finding peace. Like anyone who's been anywhere near high conflict of any sort, whether they're in the relationship, going through the divorce, or they're a child who survived it, that's me, like finding peace is everything. I love that. And so you were saying a little bit about recommending some therapies and modalities for finding peace through navigating this, because I know a lot of what you do is help them navigate the day-to-day stuff. So how do they find peace, and how do you help them navigate and find peace at the same time? How in the world does that work?
Well, it's not easy. And I tell all of my clients that in the beginning, because when my clients come to me, they have just gotten out of the relationship. They've either gotten served with child custody papers or they served them themselves, and they're still going through their trauma because they just got out of the relationship. And they're like, I'm continuing to be traumatized throughout this legal process. And the first thing I say to them is number one, please find a trauma therapist because you need to heal during this process in order to build your mental strength and resilience. You are preparing for a marathon, not a sprint, and you need to be mentally strong. So I explained to them how to establish healthy boundaries. Your ex does not need access to you 24/7. And when we first leave the relationship, we're so used to being intertwined in that relationship and appeasing that abuser that we constantly give in. And we continue that behavior when we leave. And I explained to them, you're no longer in the relationship. You don't live in the same home. You don't have to worry about having consequences if you're not meeting that person's immediate needs at that time. So it really is retraining my clients on how to think differently, how to gain back their independence, and how to stand their ground. And a lot of that is through establishing healthy boundaries and then building the mental strength. How do I reply to a co parenting email that's consistently berating me, demeaning me, calling me names? How do I respond to that? And do I need to respond to that? And so I teach them which emails are important and which ones you read and you don't do anything about it, because the email's only intent was to emotionally trigger you and make you respond emotionally in a way that makes you look crazy, so that they can share that with their legal team and possibly a judge.
Mm. Oh my goodness. Wow. That just, yeah, that covers so much. And I know that I have seen narcissists and how they work. Like I've seen this from an external point of view several times and lived some of it as a child. But the stuff that I've seen as an adult is like when you see a true narcissist bully someone into finally reacting. Like who wouldn't react when you're triggered, poked, bullied? Like none of us can be 100% perfect 100% of the time. And in that one instance where you fight back, you get videotaped or recorded or the police called or whatever on that one little thing. And now all of a sudden they're the crazy person and the narcissist is the good guy. Like the strategy in that and just the breakdown and watching it from the outside, and the person that's on the inside that's just being bullied and nagged and triggered into it. Like it's just, I can't even imagine how damaging that must be to them. It's horrendous.
You're absolutely right. The narcissist becomes the victim when
Yes.
you are embroiled in a divorce or child custody case, because they come across very charismatic and caring. Oh, they just love their kids so much. They probably haven't even been involved with your children until you started legal proceedings. You probably were the person that took the kids to school every day, picked them up, took them to all their medical appointments, dental appointments. Now, all of a sudden, in this legal battle, the narcissist does all of that, right? They become the
Mhm.
perfect parents, the perfect ex-spouse. They put on that facade. And because you are emotional and you're traumatized, you don't come across as well polished as the narcissist. And so I really teach my clients how to become non emotional. And they said, well, can I show emotion? You can show emotion in certain circumstances, but it's best to pretty much be flat whenever you're dealing with a judge or dealing with your attorney, because you don't want to give the impression that you are unstable. The narcissist is already presenting that false narrative to the legal team. You don't want to feed into that false narrative.
Yeah, that must be so difficult because by that point you must be like just internally screaming for somebody to pay attention. Like, no, do you see this is the person that's doing all, and they're absolutely coming across as being perfect and polished and you look crazy. And that would be so difficult. But yeah, oh my goodness, my heart just goes out to these people because like I saw a friend do this recently in court battle where it's like here are the practical things and here are the problems and I'm so frustrated and upset, and it's like, oh, but he really looks like he's calm and cool and got it all together, and he's really presented as the really good stable parent, and this doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good, and that's not the truth at all, because anybody who's known the people long term, they know. But when it comes to getting in front of a judge and that ongoing kind of tether that they have, um, I went through a divorce, was not high conflict, thank God, thank God. But I learned in that process what emotional intimacy really is, because there was still this connection, and a friend pointed out to me what emotional intimacy is in, like sharing part of your life with them. Like, I got a flat tire. My ex doesn't need to know that anymore. Doesn't need to know about my life, good, bad, or otherwise. But when you're connected to a narcissist who's still yanking your chain, what it's like you would never be able to get past that. Like, especially at least maybe when the kids go off to college, or no. When they get married, no. When they have kids, no. Like, it's forever, right?
Right.
Oh,
So it depends on your state. Here in North Carolina, where I am, once the kid reaches legal age, which is 18, you're no longer bound to that ex-spouse legally unless you have a parenting plan that says share the responsibilities of the child through college. I don't have that in my parenting plan, so I'm actually cutting all ties once my child reaches 18, which I'm happy to do because it protects my mental health and mental health of my older children who no longer have a relationship with my ex.
yeah, I can absolutely understand that. So, what are some of the most, let's say, top three most common problems that people initially bring to you?
The number one problem is co-parenting. When you share kids with a narcissist, they want to continue to maintain that control over you. The only way they can do that when you separate is through your children, because they can use the legal system to legally abuse you. So there's difficulty with getting medical decisions made. If your child needs therapy, which I always recommend, any child coming from an abusive home needs therapy to deal with what they saw and what they heard and what was done to them in a lot of instances in the home. The narcissist not wanting that child to explain to anyone what happened is going to block therapy. How do they do that? They're going to make the process of trying to find a therapist very difficult. You have to do joint decision making until you get a permanent child custody plan in order. So that narcissist is not going to like anyone that you select for a therapist. And if you do get to selecting a therapist, the narcissist is going to cause problems with the therapy. They're going to intimidate your medical providers, including the therapist, to the point that medical providers get scared. They're scared to actually recommend therapies for your child. They're scared they're going to get sued because the narcissist is so intimidating and threatening to them if they say the wrong thing. If they say something that goes against the narcissist, they're terrified to say the wrong thing. So it's just a mess. I have a lot of mainly mothers. I do have some fathers as well, but it's 95% mothers that come to me that are just frustrated. They know their kids need help, but they're struggling to get their kids the help that they need because the narcissist is being so difficult during the situation. The other thing I see a lot of is financial abuse. A lot of stay-at-home moms that rely on having money from their ex to support them, and the narcissist is refusing to pay post-separation support. They're hiding financials during the legal process to show that they have a lower income than what they actually have. They're cutting off credit cards. They're cutting off access to joint bank accounts because they want to have the spouse that left them suffer and be in pain for leaving the narcissist. So it's a lot of things to just, you can tell it's to maintain power and control. It's never in the best interest of the children. If anything, they do things that are in the worst interest of the children just so they can say that they win. And even when they have their custodial time with the children, a lot of them don't even spend time with their kids. They drop the kids over to the grandparents' home or to a friend's house so that they can continue to do what they want to do during that time.
Well, as rotten as that is, it's a blessing.
True.
It's probably a blessing because, yeah, I didn't think about that with children getting therapy because I didn't even come from that generation of children need therapy. Woo. I'm a Gen Xer. We drank from the garden hose and we didn't talk about the word therapy.
Me
But
either.
But I never thought of that and how a narcissist, yeah, it's probably their worst nightmare to have them talking bad about them to anyone, let alone have it written down and recorded by a therapist. So, yeah, I could imagine that you would come up against some pretty hard fight there. Wow, that's so sad because kids need it because you don't want
Yes.
them to be traumatized by it, learn those bad habits and ways of coping. And even those that don't go on to actually become narcissists, because that's a whole other, kettle of fish, but may learn some bad communication things and techniques from a narcissist because that's what they're raised by the parent that they love who is a narcissist. Like that's got to be so difficult. So, wow, that's very eye-opening. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure that there are people right now who are going through or about to go through or have been going through all of that are like, yeah, what she said. Thank you for putting some light on that. And so tell me, what are you doing to work
Yes.
with these moms, these parents, dads too? And I know you have some exciting upcoming things as well. What do you have going on now? What do you have upcoming? Please do share.
I have a course upcoming on September 1st where I'm going to run everyone through a 6 self-paced module on how to heal and how to deal with, the parenting strategies as well as building healthy boundaries. And we'll work through these modules together. I'm also meet with everyone in the course on a weekly basis where we could just talk about the lessons that they did thus far, as well as address any questions, have a place of safety where as a support network and support one another and discuss whatever we're doing, whether we're in the middle of our legal battles or we're still surviving from getting our permanent custody or in place. Because one thing we don't have a lot of as survivors is a support, trying to find people been through and are currently going through the experience to have someone to talk to, because there's nothing like coming across someone what you're going through. That is the biggest relief for a survivor of narcissistic abuse,
Yeah,
because most people don't understand your position. I have is my book. I do not have that is something that I'm going to be. I have my course coming up September 1st, and then I also have my book release coming up as well.
fantastic. I love it. And I can only imagine that the support of being with fellow survivors and people who are going through it. I know that one of the things narcissists do best is isolate people. That's one of their superpowers is they can isolate you so that you don't have any support. But getting that support from other people who are going through the same thing, sometimes when we're talking about it or we hear somebody else say it, it's like, oh, yeah, that really is crappy. That really is wrong. So I can imagine that that is really powerful for them. And I'm excited that you have that group. That's great. Well, actually, I want to ask you about being a best-selling author. What are some of the benefits that you've seen of being a best-selling author that you'd like to share with some of our authorpreneurs?
Sure. So I am an accidental author.
I love that.
you. Writing therapeutic journaling because I had so much information in my head that I just needed to get out. And so my therapeutic journals turned into a book because once I started verbally sharing my story, I got a lot of questions on how did you get out? What steps did you take? What did you do to heal after? And I said, you know what? I'm just going to take my journals and share my story and then put resources in there to help others. So when I published my book, I didn't expect many people to read it. I'm like, oh, nobody wants to hear my story. Like, I'm just, I have a very small audience of people that are going to relate to what I'm saying and, purchase the book. And to my surprise, a lot more than a small group of people read my book. I was very surprised by a lot of the males that read the book and told me they read it and how I opened their eyes to a lot of things. It's been wonderful when we talk about the experience, just having so many people contact me either by phone, text, or social media, complete strangers, telling me how much they learned from my book, thanking me for writing it because they could identify with my story. They were either going through something exactly what I was going through or something very similar. And they said that it helped them to get out of their toxic relationships, or it helped them find a path to heal, or it just validated that they were not crazy. Because a lot of times when you're in these types of relationships, due to the gaslighting and emotional manipulation that goes on, you think that you're crazy and you're over exaggerating what's going on. So it provided a lot of validation for people that felt that way. And it gave them a path to get out and to move forward. So when I hear those types of stories, it just gives me the warm and fuzzy inside because I know that I did something that impacted the lives of others in a positive way.
Ah, I love that. Love it. So well said. And I love that you're an accidental author. And now intentional author. So what inspired you to now write this next book?
So the second book was born because of just dealing with all of my clients in my high conflict divorce coaching. I see the issue of healing and trying to get to the other side. Self-care and establishing healthy boundaries is a struggle. And so I wanted to give people different ways that they could start to build their boundaries, as well as different things that they can do for self-care, such as doing a 10-minute walk during your lunch hour. It could be something as simple as that that does so many positive things for your nervous system. So I want to open people's eyes to, hey, you may think you don't have time to do X, Y, and Z, but you actually can carve out 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day if you actually make the intention and have a growth mindset to get to the other side. And I stress within my book that you really have to have the intention of wanting to heal and wanting to be better, because that is what is going to drive you to go through the steps to get there.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm a big fan of what can I do right now? Not what can I schedule for later? What can I do if I have more money, if I have more time, if I have more energy, if I have more resources, if I have what can I do right now? And when you talk about the 10-minute walk at lunch, I'm thinking, I need to take a 10-minute walk at lunch. That it changes everything. And so you said that you have something free to share with our authorpreneurs. Please tell us about that.
Sure. My free guide is Surviving and Thriving Through High Conflict Divorce. So I tell you a little bit about what to do pre-divorce, what to expect while you're going through the divorce process, and what to expect once you're done with the divorce process. So it's a mini guide on the different aspects of pre-divorce and post-divorce, as well as child custody battles when you're going through a high conflict legal process.
That's pretty juicy. Yeah, good stuff. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I know that those who need it are really, really going to appreciate it. And how can we follow you in social media and connect with you through your website or newsletter? What's the best way to get in contact?
The best way to get into contact with me is through social media. I am on Instagram and TikTok at Alana Sharps. I also have my website, which is www.SurThriveTribe.com. And SurThrive is just the word survivor and thriving pushed together to make the word SurThrive. And then tribe, all pushed together.com.
Excellent. And we'll have those links easy for everybody to just click on as well. But for those who might be driving in the car and listening along, we want to make it easy for them as well. So thank you so much for the free gift. Thank you for sharing your wisdom today. And thank you for being here. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
All right. Have a good day. We'll see you soon.
Thank